Hey everyone, Rayon with Oceans for Everyone. In this video, we're going to talk about SCUBA, ROVs, and AUVs in marine research. Now, SCUBA is self-contained underwater breathing apparatus. So what is scuba diving? Cool. It's just a method of underwater diving using independent breathing, and the purpose of it is to have direct human observation and data collection in marine environments. And it's really good for biological surveys, underwater photography, archaeological exploration, things like that. Now, the apparatus that you use you have a compressed air tank, you'll have a regulator and a mouthpiece to breathe from, and then their jacket is called a BCD, is called a buoyancy control device. And that adjusts your buoyancy in the water so you can, float comfortably for stable diving. You'll have a suit, a wetsuit or a dry suit, and then you'll have a mask, and fins and dive computer and gauges and, whatever you need to use to do the surveys itself, like cameras or slates and things like that. And so the surveys that you're doing are usually on marine flora and fauna. And they're really good for assessing like coral reef health, monitor pollution, tracking changes in the ecosystems. They're good for archaeology, like exploring and documenting cultural heritage sites. There's certain challenges though to scuba. There are time constraints because of the physical toll it takes on your body. There's physiology involved and gas supply and all kinds of things. And there's decompression sickness and equipment failure and all kinds of things that you need to think about. There's also a limited range of scope when compared to automated systems like an ROV. But in many situations, scuba is really good for surveys. So speaking of ROVs, what is an ROV? It's a robot, really, controlled remotely by an operator on the surface. And so we use it to conduct deep sea exploration, data collection without the need for divers, all right? And it's good for, pipeline inspections, things like that, but they're really cool. I work with them a lot. So what are the components of an ROV? So there's the frame, and then there's propulsion, with thrusters for movement, and then there's cameras and sensors and sonar sometimes and other sensors for data collection. Then you have the manipulator arms that we can use for sampling and then for interaction with with different objects on the water. Then there's the tether, really important. That's the cable that connects the ROV to the surface for power and data transmission a lot of the times. We use this for deep sea exploration, investigation of environments beyond human reach, like say hydrothermal vents or deep sea trenches and things like that. It's good for monitoring underwater habitats and it's observing marine life behaviors as well. Good for archaeological surveys, exploring shipwrecks, submerged ruins in deep water. So there are lots of advantages to the ROV. You can operate at great depths. You get real-time video if you want. You can perform complex tasks, but you are limited by like the length of the tether. You're limited by like the bulky equipment. They're often quite heavy, and the reliance on surface operators, that can be a limitation sometimes, depending on what you're doing. Speaking of limitations by surface operators, AUV, autonomous underwater vehicle, is another robot that operates without direct human control, and you can conduct long duration surveys that cover large areas without the need for surface support, like seafloor mapping, oceanographic data collection, things like that. So the AUVs, they'll also have a hull with propulsion. They usually have a very hydrodynamic design, and they have like a navigation system as well. They have plenty of sensors, like cameras, environmental sensors, and other scientific instruments. The navigation system would be usually GPS, And it's like an inertial navigation systems as well, and depth sensors really. And they just go on missions that are pre-programmed, and you just set it and just let it go. They're good for C4 mapping, like high resolution C4 mapping, and they also can get seabed topography and sediment composition as well, depending on what type of sensors you put on there. Really good for long-term monitoring, salinity, and other, oceanographic parameters. So what else is there for AUVs? Generally speaking, we use the AUVs for really large scale data sets. Like we'll set them and they'll go for hours, sometimes days, sometimes months, depending on the battery life a lot of the times. So they're operated without any humans, but they are limited by data storage capacity and just the potential for being interrupted by different things out in the ocean. All right, so SCUBA, recap, is best for direct human observation, limited by depth and duration, good for coral reef assessment, things like that. The ROV are it's good for ideal for deep sea complex tasks, but they're limited by surface dependency and tether length. The AUV, they're good for really large scale autonomous surveys, but they're limited by battery life and mission complexity and things like that. But they each play vital roles in marine research. So before it gets too long, that's it for SCUBA, ROV, and AUV.